Hi, I'm Rebecca Burton. Haven't talked to y'all in a long time. I don't know how long it's been. I guess the last follow-up was just after the Women's Playwrights International Conference in Chile, which was October 2019. Oh my gosh, time's so weird. And now we've had a pandemic in between. And there's been a lot of change going on. So, yes, the pandemic, March, it hit. We've been following the news and hearing about stuff going on in China, and then it all happened so quickly. When it came here, there was no time to prepare. Just we were working away, theater was up and running, shows were going on, and then suddenly, boom, shut down, industry-wide across the nation. So, of course, part of my job is a professional contracts manager at the Playwrights Guild of Canada. So my inbox exploded, and my job became a lot more difficult. So the first thing, of course, for the playwrights was what's going on? Are we going to get paid? I have these contracts, we've signed all these things, I have productions coming up. And no one knew right away, right? We're like, ooh. So everybody learned about the force majeure clause in their contracts, which is an act of God, something that we can't control, which broke all the contracts. But then with that clause, it's supposed to be a postponement. So you postpone your production, you reschedule it, you're going to do it again another day. So a lot of theaters kept doing that. So we'll reschedule the production 3 months from now, and then they'd have to reschedule again in another 3 months, and then another 3 months, and you get the picture. So that became difficult and very painful. And then, of course, the industry was like, what can we do? How can we survive? How are we going to get theater to the people still if we're shut down? So a lot of companies scrambled then to take their plays online and to present staged readings and things like that online. So that also was part of my job. That was really crazy, because then we had to try to figure out, how do we do that? We had a little bit of a jump on it because we'd already just come out with a podcast contract, because we saw that more and more people were interested in making podcasts and making plays into podcasts. And then we had a contract for other kinds of recording, when you film something and you want to broadcast it. But a lot of the stuff that was happening online were these sort of one-off readings on Zoom and things like that. And we had no contracts to cover that. We had no rates. What do you charge for that? So that was a little bit crazy, and that was part of my job to figure that out. So I put together a COVID-19 contract for Digital Works, and we worked out some rates. But it's very complicated. There are so many different ways that people went about that. So I think at this point I'm working with 6 different models. So it's literally been a case by case, dealing with each theater individually. Like, how are you approaching this? Are you charging people? Is it pay what you can? Are you generating ad revenue? Are you accepting donations? Because all of this would affect, of course, the licensing rates. So that was something that's been a big part of my life for the past year, is digital contracts, which prior to the pandemic was a very, very small part of my job. So a huge reversal there. So that's what was happening with my job, the professional side, for me personally. But of course, there's all these other things that came to light during the pandemic as well. Inequities for so many different people became huge. For me personally, I could see very much how this had a huge impact on women and really kind of set back the women's movement and feminism. Because of course everyone's got to stay home now. Kids weren't going to school. If you have a mother and a father working, 9 times out of 10 it's the woman who's staying home and taking care of the children. So in terms of work, we've seen a real clawback in terms of women's participation in the workforce. So that's been a massive change. The mental health, huge. I mean, for everybody. We did a survey at one point of playwrights just to see how everyone was doing, and of course, people are all over the place, but so many playwrights were completely unable to write during this period in time because they were so stressed out. And of course, we have so many other things coming to the fore as well. Black Lives Matter, so many murders. Most recently, the discovery of the 215, which I understand now is actually over 300 bodies, remains of children from the residential school in Kamloops. So it's been such a strange and interesting time. One more thing to climate, the climate, right? The pandemic, it gave the planet a break in some ways. We all stayed home. We stopped driving to work for a while. That was great. And now it's sort of flipped. No one wants to take public transit, so everyone's driving. So things are worse than ever before. Things where we would, for instance, I get an organics box delivered, and it was always in this reusable bag that we would return, and now suddenly it's a brand new cardboard box every time. So you just see all this environmental stuff going crazy. Yeah, so many different issues coming to the fore. Things that we always knew existed, but were really brought into sharp relief by the pandemic. We could see that, yes, we're all in this together, but all things are not equal, and different people definitely experiencing different levels of difficulties. My favorite Facebook meme going around at the time said something to the effect of lockdown. That's when the middle class stays at home and the working class brings them everything. And I thought, yeah, that pretty much sums it up. So we saw the class system come out really huge, which we often sometimes think in Canada that we don't have a class system, but we definitely do. Yeah, so many things. So there's this great hope and optimism in the theatre community right now, because everybody did come together. There's been weekly meetings with the PACT, the Professional Association of Canadian Theatres, all the arts service organizations really coming together and trying to work together and figure things out. And within that, paying a lot of attention to inequities for people of color, for Indigenous people, for women, for people with disabilities, and trying to take this moment as an opportunity to readjust, realign, and do it all for the better. Theater work culture as well. I mean, it really needs an overhaul. Much like the film world, theater people put in insane hours. Right? The week before a play opens, you could be looking at 12 to 16-hour days, maybe one day off if you're lucky. And it's not healthy. It's not really sustainable. And in a pandemic, especially when you have extra things like having to stay home with your children and homeschool, these things become impossible. So there's the possibility for real change and great things to come out of this terrible, dark time period. And, the optimism is all over the place, and it depends on the day and the moment for me. Sometimes I think, yes, like this is a blessing in disguise, because we can remake our industry now, and we can make it better for everybody. And then on the other hand, on my pessimistic days, I think, wow, no, it's just going to be worse than ever, right? We're further down in the hole now. We're not digging our way out. So lots of possibility. Where will we end up? We'll see. It feels hopeful right now because we're starting to open up, and maybe we will get to have live theater again soon. Broadway's open, parts of the West End, so hopefully Canada will be following soon. There are, of course, worries of a fourth wave and another spike. So I know a lot of theater companies are planning their seasons to reopen to the public in January 2022. So fingers crossed. We hope that will happen. And wow, yeah. And we're also worried about what happens even when the theaters do open. Like, what's it going to mean? What's it going to look like? Will people want to come back to the theater? Will they be afraid that they're going to get sick? Of course, there will be safety protocols that must be followed and all that good kind of stuff. But we're also even thinking about programming. Like, what will that be like? Because companies are afraid that audiences might not come back, are we going to return to the days of really safe programming where we just do sort of, old famous musicals so we don't have to think or dig too deep? Or are we going to see the opposite? Are we going to see really hard-hitting theater that's like wanting to talk about what happened in the last year and a half, 2 years, maybe by the time we get there? And maybe it's going to be a mixture of both. But again, just lots of question marks for the theater industry, the arts industries in general. And it's one of those time will tell. People are planning, right? There's plan A, B, C, D, E, and F, and you have to change your plan every month. And yeah, that's kind of where things are at right now.